What if a small birthmark on a struggling black waitress became the key to unlocking $50 million and a mystery that would shatter her entire world? When Jade Chen, the enigmatic billionaire CEO of Shanghai Global Enterprises, stops at a humble roadside diner outside Atlanta, nobody recognizes the quiet man sipping coffee in the corner booth. But the moment his eyes lock onto the crescent moon-shaped mark on Ava Jackson's wrist as she refills his cup, his composed facade crumbles. Within 24 hours, Ava discovers her crushing student debt vanished, her grandmother's medical bills paid, and an unfathomable sum transferred into her account from an anonymous benefactor. Meanwhile, international headlines explode with news of the mysterious disappearance of one of the wealthiest men in Asia, leaving behind a cryptic note mentioning only a promise made 30 years ago. What connects a powerful foreign businessman to a struggling single mother working 3 jobs just to survive? Ava Jackson stared at the bank statement on her cracked phone screen for the 20th time as federal agents Wells and Martinez exchanged skeptical glances in her tiny apartment living room, where the scent of yesterday's fried chicken still lingered beneath the sharp tang of their expensive cologne. $50 million. The numbers blurred before her eyes while the air conditioner rattled pathetically against the summer heat, causing the peeling wallpaper to flutter like nervous butterflies behind the agents who had appeared at her door less than an hour after her shift ended. The taller agent with salt and pepper hair leaned forward, his leather chair creaking against the uneven floorboards as he repeated his accusation about wire fraud and international financial crimes, words that seemed absurdly out of place in an apartment where the electricity had been shut off twice this year alone. Outside her smudged windows, Ava could see Mrs. Henderson from apartment 4B pretending to water the shared hallway plants while straining to overhear the conversation, alongside at least 3 other neighbors whose faces pressed against the stairwell window in shifts. Her phone vibrated again with another call from a number she did not recognize, the 5th news outlet today, according to Agent Martinez, all desperate for a statement about her connection to Jade Chen, the mysterious billionaire who had apparently emptied accounts across 7 countries before vanishing without a trace. Ava wrapped her waitress uniform apron tighter around her fingers, the familiar fabric grounding her as she repeated for the 4th time that she had only served the quiet man in the corner booth his coffee, refilled his water twice, and brought him the blue plate special with extra napkins. The younger agent scoffed while gesturing toward the notification from her bank, asking if she typically received 8-figure tips from customers at the Waffle Star Diner. The constant ringing of her phone synchronized with the pounding in her temples as Ava tried to comprehend how her entire life had imploded in less than 24 hours, transforming from worrying about making rent to being suspected of international crimes involving sums of money she could barely comprehend. Agent Wells slid another photo across her coffee table, marred with rings from countless mugs, showing security footage of the elegant Asian businessman studying her intently as she poured his coffee, his eyes fixed not on her face but on the crescent-shaped birthmark visible on her wrist. Sweat trickled down her back as the accusations continued, her grandmother's medical bills and her own massive student loan debt mysteriously paid in full overnight, her landlord calling to confirm a wire transfer covering 5 years of advance rent, all while international news outlets flooded every channel with reports of the vanished CEO, whose last known location was a nondescript diner where he had eaten lunch and apparently decided to change a struggling waitress's life, forever before disappearing without explanation, leaving Ava at the center of a mystery she never asked to be part of and could not begin to understand. Friends, before we go further, may I ask a small favor? Please subscribe to our channel. It truly helps us keep bringing you these stories, and reaching 1,000 subscribers soon is so important for us to continue. We also love hearing from you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how our little storytelling circle is spreading across the world. And if you enjoyed the beginning, give this video a like and let's share thoughts on the whole story together below. Sunlight streamed through pristine curtains in the private hospital suite that had mysteriously upgraded from shared ward to executive floor overnight, bathing the room in golden warmth that highlighted the profusion of fresh lilies and orchids adorning every surface with their intoxicating fragrance. Grandmother Martha looked small against the plush pillows and premium linens, her frail body seeming to sink into comfort unfamiliar after months of lying on standard-issue hospital bedding. Yet her eyes remained sharp as Ava poured out her confusion about FBI interrogations and sudden wealth while perching on the edge of a leather armchair that probably cost more than 3 months of her previous rent. The television mounted on the wall murmured softly with breaking news about international financial markets reacting to the Chen disappearance, scrolling statistics and concerned anchors creating white noise beneath their conversation until a full-color photograph of Jade Chen appeared on screen, causing Martha to abruptly stop mid-sentence, her weathered hand reaching for the remote with unexpected urgency. Ava watched confusion transform her grandmother's face into something unrecognizable. A mixture of shock and ancient fear rippling across features normally set in stubborn determination against pain and circumstance, her fingers trembling as she clutched the bedsheet with one hand and pointed at the screen with the other. The words that followed emerged as barely a whisper, forcing Ava to lean closer to catch them in the sun-drenched silence suddenly heavy between them. "Your mother never told you about the crescent moon, did she?" The question hung unanswered, as Ava instinctively covered the birthmark on her wrist that had drawn the mysterious billionaire's attention, a gesture her grandmother tracked with eyes now filling with tears as monitors beeped steadily in the background. Martha began speaking of things Ava had never heard before. Tales of her late mother taking a position in Shanghai as a young woman desperate for adventure and income, serving as nanny to a wealthy Chinese family whose compound overlooked the city from exclusive heights, sending home photographs of elegant gardens and ancient architecture, alongside letters full of excitement about her exotic new life. The hospital room with its luxury appointments faded around them as Grandmother Martha painted pictures with halting words about a different world across oceans, about powerful business dynasties and family rivalries, about a young American girl from Atlanta who found herself witness to events she could never have anticipated when accepting the position. Ava felt the floor shifting beneath her as familiar family history reorganized itself into something unrecognizable. The simple narrative of her mother returning from overseas already pregnant and determined to raise her child alone, now revealed as merely the visible portion of a story with roots stretching across continents, connections forming between her own everyday existence, serving coffee in a roadside diner, and unexplained millions appearing in her bank account from a man who recognized something in her that she herself never understood. A crescent birthmark that apparently carried significance beyond mere pigmentation, a mark that somehow connected her to events from 30 years ago, in a country she had never visited, but whose shadows had apparently been following her since birth. The lock tumbled open beneath her key, but something felt wrong the moment Ava pushed her apartment door inward, the familiar scent of her lavender candles replaced by disturbed dust and the metallic tang of intrusion hanging in the stale air. Shards of broken picture frames crunched beneath her shoes as she stepped inside, witnessing her meager possessions scattered across the floor like discarded trash. Couch cushions slashed open with their stuffing, creating sad white piles amid overturned furniture and emptied drawers. The violation of her humble sanctuary complete and devastating. Her trembling fingers found the light switch, but electricity revealed only further destruction, and a bathroom mirror where elegant Chinese characters had been painted in what looked horribly like blood, crimson symbols dripping down the reflective surface, and transforming her own shocked expression into something fractured and unfamiliar. Rain began pelting against windows left partially open by the intruders, creating puddles on her water-warped photographs now strewn across the floor, childhood memories soaking in spreading dampness, as Ava grabbed her emergency backpack from its hiding spot beneath the loose floorboard, untouched by the searchers. The storm intensified as she fled down fire escape stairs, slick with rainwater, collar turned up against the downpour that masked her tears, while distant thunder punctuated her rapid heartbeat, the weight of $50 million suddenly feeling like a death sentence rather than salvation. Headlights appeared behind her as she hurried through rain-slicked streets, a sleek black sedan maintaining perfect distance through 3 turns and 2 traffic lights, its expensive silhouette gliding through puddles without splashing while panic climbed her spine like spiders, her pace quickening until her waitress shoes slipped on wet concrete. Strong hands suddenly gripped her arm as she passed a narrow alley, pulling her into shadows with unexpected force yet surprising gentleness, her scream cut short by the calm voice of a slender Asian man in an immaculate suit completely untouched by the rain. 4 blocks and 1 hidden elevator later, Ava found herself in a gleaming underground office space where multiple surveillance screens showed her apartment building, her grandmother's hospital room, the diner where she worked, and a dozen other locations connected to her ordinary life, all monitored by efficient staff who barely glanced up from their stations as Lin, introducing himself as Jade Chen's personal assistant and head of security, guided her toward a private conference room smelling of jasmine tea and expensive leather. His perfect English carried no accent as he explained that his employer had been searching for someone with her specific birthmark for almost 3 decades, dedicating enormous resources to tracking down every lead across continents, before finally locating her through facial recognition, software adapted to identify the distinctive crescent shape. Questions tumbled from her lips like the rain outside, but Lin deflected each one with practiced ease, offering safety and explanations that never quite satisfied, while surveillance images flashed behind him showing men in dark clothing entering her apartment building less than an hour after she had left for the hospital, the same men now circling the block in unmarked vehicles with weapons visible beneath their jackets, hunters searching for prey that had mysteriously vanished into the storm. The fluorescent lights of First National Bank cast an unforgiving glow across marble floors, polished to mirror shine, reflecting the nervous fidgeting of Ava as she clutched the small brass key her grandmother had pressed into her palm, with urgent whispers about truths hidden and time running out. Security cameras tracked her movement through the lobby where wealth whispered rather than shouted, the soft symphony of keyboards and hushed conversations accompanying her journey toward massive vault doors, standing like ancient guardians of secrets both mundane and extraordinary. The bank manager, a woman whose tailored navy suit matched the institutional color scheme perfectly, examined the account information with professionally concealed surprise, mentioning this particular box had remained untouched for 21 years before escorting Ava through biometric scanners and reinforced barriers designed to protect valuables from those who would claim them through illegitimate means. Cold metal walls surrounded them as row upon row of identical boxes created a labyrinth of hidden histories, each containing fragments of lives deemed important enough to lock away from sunlight and casual observation, the weight of collective secrets pressing down like the tons of steel and concrete overhead. The manager slid her master key into the lock alongside Waz's brass companion, the mechanical tumblers clicking open to reveal a rectangular metal container, preserving contents untouched since Ava herself was merely an infant growing within her mother's womb, the mathematical precision of banking security suddenly giving way to the messy reality of personal history. Yellowed envelopes and faded photographs spilled onto the viewing table as Ava carefully emptied the container, her fingers trembling upon discovering images of her mother standing in elaborate gardens beside a handsome Chinese couple, her pregnancy clearly visible in some while, her face transformed from joyful to frightened across the chronological progression, the final images showing her clutching a small jade pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Beneath the photographs lay a leather journal filled with increasingly desperate entries, ink blotched in places by what might have been tears, describing a wealthy family torn apart by ambition, a pregnant American nanny witnessing events she was never meant to see, and finally a desperate escape helped by the family's eldest son after his brother and sister-in-law died under suspicious circumstances on the same night. Flames consumed ancestral records and evidence. The bank manager, who had been maintaining discreet distance, suddenly mentioned with practiced casualness that Ava was the second person expressing interest in this particular box, her professional tone faltering slightly when describing a gentleman with distinctive dragon tattoo winding up his neck, who had inquired just yesterday without proper authorization, prompting additional security protocols for this visit. Cold fear crystallized in Waz's chest upon hearing this detail, even as she discovered a final envelope containing original birth documents, official seals, and a handwritten letter addressed to the child of Mei and Jian Chen. The elegant characters translated into English beneath explaining rights of inheritance to family holdings valued in billions, while warning of relatives who would stop at nothing to maintain control of assets never rightfully theirs. Surveillance cameras captured her pale face and trembling hands without recording the realization dawning within her mind that she had never truly known who she was or the danger that identity carried. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the Grand Azure Hotel restaurant, where waitstaff glided between tables with balletic precision, carrying silver trays laden with delicacies Ava could not name and champagne she could never afford. The opulence of marble columns and hand-painted silk panels creating a backdrop against which her department store blouse and scuffed shoes screamed imposter with every movement. Wei Huang watched her approach with the patient assessment of a predator tracking wounded prey. His lean figure draped in a charcoal suit that whispered of Italian craftsmanship and old money, each platinum cufflink worth more than her monthly salary, as he gestured with manicured hands for her to join him at a corner table positioned for both privacy and surveillance of all entrances. The nephew and CFO of Shanghai Global Enterprises introduced himself with practiced charm that never reached his obsidian eyes, ordering in fluent French without consulting the menu while Ava clutched her water glass, hyper-aware of security cameras mounted discreetly in recessed ceiling panels, and the two men at nearby tables whose attention remained fixed on their phones, yet whose bodies angled protectively toward their employer. $20 million appeared in the conversation as casually as weather might be discussed between acquaintances, Wei sliding a document across imported linen tablecloths with a fountain pen that gleamed beneath recessed lighting, explaining that this generous offer would resolve all matters concerning what rightfully belonged to the Chen family interests, though his smile tightened when Ava asked exactly what item he believed she possessed. Tension vibrated between them like crystal struck with silver as Wei folded his hands, weight of ancestral jade rings, emphasizing heritage and lineage, while he spoke of family obligations and mistakes made by his uncle, whose judgment had clearly faltered with age, each syllable precisely formed yet hollow of genuine emotion, as his eyes catalogued her reactions with scientific detachment. Her refusal emerged softer than intended yet immovable as mountain stone, the strength of her conviction visibly surprising the man accustomed to purchasing compliance, his composure fracturing momentarily as he leaned forward while maintaining awareness of their public surroundings. Security cameras captured the exact moment his urbane facade transformed into something reptilian and ancient, his body angling to shield his lips from distant observation while words slithered across the minimal space between them, every syllable razor-edged with promise rather than possibility, as he detailed how all blessings currently enjoyed could transform into curses at his command, from her mysterious wealth to her grandmother's upgraded medical care, from her safely secured apartment to her very freedom, each necessity dangling from silken threads he controlled with corporate signatures and international influence. Ava felt her world contract to this single moment of revelation where devils wore bespoke tailoring and threatened with practiced smiles, realizing too late that accepting coffee from a billionaire had initiated a game with rules she never agreed to, yet stakes higher than she could afford to lose. Morning mist clung to ancient stone paths winding between modest homes of weathered wood and faded tile, where Ava followed Lin through a remote village nestled among bamboo forests outside Shanghai. her mother's journal entries guiding them to this place untouched by the gleaming skyscrapers, visible as distant spectres on the horizon. Incense smoke curled from ancestral shrines tucked into corners of every dwelling, honoring generations whose photographs and memorial tablets created physical connections between past and present, between those who walked these paths today and those who had traveled beyond. The boundaries between worlds feeling permeable in this place where tradition remained as solid as the mountains embracing the valley. Curious eyes followed their progress through narrow lanes while whispers fluttered between doorways like nervous birds, residents emerging from shadows to stare openly at the American woman whose features carried echoes of faces long absent from their community, the atmosphere shifting from suspicion to something more complex when an elderly woman selling vegetables caught sight of them and dropped her basket with a cry that needed no translation. Her weathered fingers reached for Waz's wrist with surprising strength, pushing back the sleeve to reveal the crescent birthmark that had started this entire journey, her eyes widening with recognition that transcended language barriers as tears carved pathways down cheeks mapped with 8 decades of joy and sorrow. The old woman's voice carried through the sudden silence of the marketplace, her Mandarin flowing rapid and emotional while Lin translated her declaration about the blessing mark of the Chen family firstborn, words causing gasps among gathered villagers until neighbors suddenly surrounded the elder, urgent hands gently but firmly covering her mouth, while apologetic smiles attempted to disguise the obvious fear behind their intervention. Lin urged immediate departure, as previously. Welcoming faces transformed with awareness of potential consequences, his trained eyes scanning rooftops and alleyways, while guiding Ava back toward their waiting vehicle through suddenly emptied streets where doors closed firmly against their passing, and children were hurriedly called inside from play. Sunlight briefly illuminated a distant hillside where binoculars captured their hasty retreat. 3 men in black tactical clothing documenting their movements with professional efficiency before speaking into communication devices that would relay their location directly to Wei Huang, the international chess game expanding beyond national borders as Ava clutched her mother's journal against her racing heart, understanding for the first time that the mystery of her identity stretched across oceans and decades, connecting her humble Atlanta existence to ancient family dynasties and birthright claims powerful enough to silence entire communities with mere whispers of their awakening. Rain tapped gentle rhythms against paper windows of the secluded courtyard house, where centuries of Chen family history surrounded Ava in ornate wood carvings and faded calligraphy scrolls. The traditional architecture nestled within bamboo groves, providing stark contrast to sleek surveillance equipment and fingerprint scanners, monitoring every approach. Ancient wooden cabinets lined walls of the inner sanctuary, where Lin had insisted she wait while he secured the perimeter, their lacquered surfaces worn smooth by generations of reverent hands, now yielding secrets beneath her curious fingers, as hidden compartments revealed yellowed photographs and bound documents preserved in silk wrappings. Firelight from traditional lanterns cast dancing shadows across her face as Ava carefully translated financial records and newspaper clippings with her phone app, piecing together the tragic history of the family whose blood might flow through her veins. Learning how Jade Chen and his identical twin brother Jian had built an empire from humble beginnings, only to be torn apart when Jian and his pregnant American wife perished in a suspicious laboratory fire 30 years ago on the same night. Critical research patents mysteriously transferred ownership. Her breath caught upon discovering corporate succession documents dated 1 day after the tragedy, showing how control had immediately shifted to Wei Huang's father despite established family protocols. The ink barely dry on death certificates before company leadership changed hands under circumstances that caused Jade Chen to spend decades building separate holdings while apparently searching for something or someone thought lost forever. Modern security alerts chimed softly through ancient beams as Lin returned from patrol, his composed exterior finally cracking as he found Ava surrounded by the physical evidence of secrets kept for decades, his professional distance dissolving into profound weariness as he lowered himself onto an ancestral meditation cushion opposite her trembling form. Truth flowed between them in the sacred space where ancestors watched from gilded memorial tablets, while Lin finally revealed what Jade Chen himself had discovered only months ago through exhaustive DNA database searches and facial recognition technology tracking the distinctive crescent birthmark carried by all firstborn Chen descendants for 7 generations. The nanny employed by Jian and his wife had not perished in the fire as officially reported, but had instead escaped with the unborn child delivered prematurely during her desperate flight, smuggling the Chen heir to America with documentation prepared by Jade himself in a final act of protection against those who had already murdered his brother for control of their shared empire. Was fingers traced the crescent mark on her wrist with new understanding as ancient floorboards creaked beneath her while outside cameras monitored for approaching threats, her entire identity shifting beneath her like sand in an hourglass as she absorbed the revelation that she was not simply Ava Jackson from Atlanta, but possibly the sole surviving child of Jian Chen, rightful heir to billions and living evidence of murders committed 30 years ago by those who would kill again to maintain their power. Steel doors slammed shut with finality behind them as bright spotlights suddenly pierced the darkness of the abandoned factory, temporarily blinding Ava and Lin, while black-clad figures emerged from shadows to secure their wrists with practiced efficiency. The element of surprise complete and devastating in this cavernous space, where Chen brothers had built their first manufacturing facility 30 years ago. Rust claimed ancient machinery like silent cancer, while water dripped through decaying ceiling panels, creating percussion for the approaching footsteps of Wei Huang, flanked by 4 armed guards, whose weapons remained casually pointed toward the captives, now forced to kneel on concrete floors stained with decades of industrial chemicals, and more recent evidence of blood. Pride radiated from Wei as he circled them with predatory satisfaction, his voice echoing against metal walls while he expounded on family legacy and responsibility, how his father had made necessary sacrifices to ensure company survival when Jian Chen had threatened everything with his American wife and progressive ideas about shared patents with the world. Shadows concealed portions of his face as he lectured about business necessities and unfortunate accidents, gesturing toward abandoned chemical vats where evidence could disappear alongside troublesome relatives, his perfect English carrying through the vast space while outside rain continued its relentless rhythm against broken windows and exposed metal beams. Pain blossomed across Lin's face as guards demonstrated their willingness to enforce cooperation, Wei explaining patiently how they required access to the final evidence cache Jade Chen had accumulated over decades, proof of corporate espionage and murder that would destroy everything his family had built unless recovered and eliminated alongside the final loose ends represented by the kneeling captives. Desperation crept into his previously controlled demeanor when neither prisoner volunteered information, prompting revelation of his insurance policy. Grandmother Martha, recently relocated from her comfortable hospital suite to accommodations significantly less conducive to recovery, her medical condition requiring medications currently withheld pending successful conclusion of their business arrangement. Something shifted in Ava's expression upon hearing this final threat against her only remaining family, her body language transforming from terror to something altogether different as she slowly rose despite guards pressing weapons against her shoulders, revealing with quiet dignity that their entire conversation from threats through confession had transmitted live to servers across 4 continents, the recording devices Lin had equipped her with before entering China, now broadcasting Wei Huang's elaborate confession to corporate databases, law enforcement agencies, and international media outlets simultaneously. Horror crawled across Wei's features as screens embedded in his own security team's equipment confirmed her claim, notifications flooding in from company board members and authorities already responding to evidence hidden in plain sight. Decades of carefully maintained secrets unraveling in minutes while outside sirens wailed their approach through rain-soaked streets, justice finally arriving where it had been denied 30 years before. Chaos erupted as ceiling panels crashed inward with thunderous force, tactical teams rappelling from helicopters, while Jade Chen himself emerged from shadows like a spectre returning from beyond. His calculated disappearance revealed as elaborate theatre, designed to force his nephew into revealing his true nature. After 3 decades of patient waiting, gunfire peppered ancient machinery as Wei lunged toward Ava with desperate fury, security forces creating perimeters amid shattering glass and wailing alarms, while Chen moved with unexpected agility for his 60 years, intercepting his nephew with precision born from ancient martial disciplines, preserved alongside business acumen. Blood mingled with rain on concrete floors, where family legacies collided in physical manifestation of spiritual corruption, corporate enforcers finding themselves outmatched by international authorities, whose jurisdiction transcended borders just as truth eventually transcends deception. Spotlights from circling helicopters pierced roof openings to illuminate the tableau below, where Chen cradled a small device in his palm, displaying DNA analysis completed hours earlier, using samples collected from Ava's hospital room compared against his own genetic profile, scientific confirmation of what the crescent birthmark had already declared. She was indeed the daughter of Jian Chen and his American wife, the child presumed lost in flames alongside her parents, the rightful heir to billions built across generations. Handcuffs closed around Wei Huang's wrists with metallic finality as evidence accumulated against him like the rain now flowing through compromised roofing, each droplet another fact connecting him to crimes hidden beneath corporate structures and family influence for 30 years, his carefully constructed world dissolving beneath the weight of truth finally exposed to light. Outside the decaying factory where everything had begun 4 decades ago when twin brothers created their first circuit boards on borrowed equipment, Ava stood beneath heaven's tears with the uncle she never knew existed, his weathered hands trembling as they traced the crescent birthmark, with reverence born from grief and relief, intertwined beyond separation. Language barriers crumbled beneath emotion as Chen spoke of promises made to a dying brother, whispered through flames on the night everything changed, vows to find the child secreted away by a brave nanny who delivered her weeks early during desperate flight, commitments kept through decades of searching, culminating in a chance coffee service at an Atlanta diner where recognition sparked across generations and continents. Media vehicles arrived with blinding lights as corporate board members contacted Lin, confirming emergency transfer of controlling interests according to succession protocols established before tragedy struck, power flowing back to legitimate channels, while Wei disappeared into custody to face justice delayed but finally delivered. The humble waitress, who once counted tips to afford grandmother's medicine, stood transformed by truth and inheritance beyond financial measure, raindrops washing away her former identity alongside tears for the parents she never knew, their sacrifice and love preserved through time by those who remembered and now restored through justice served beneath heaven's witnessing gaze. Sunlight cascaded through floor-to-ceiling windows of the Phoenix Foundation headquarters, occupying 3 entire floors of the gleaming Chen Tower, illuminating spaces designed to welcome rather than intimidate, with warm wood accents and living walls bringing nature into corporate heights where Ava conducted business with humanity rather than cold efficiency. 6 months had transformed more than her external circumstances as she moved confidently between departments in tailored suits that respected rather than replaced her authentic self, her crescent birthmark now proudly displayed without concealment as she greeted staff members by name and inquired about their families with genuine interest beyond professional courtesy. Grandmother Martha presided over the scholarship division from a magnificent desk crafted from sustainable bamboo, her health fully restored through treatments previously inaccessible, her wisdom guiding selection processes for educational opportunities, targeting specifically those parents struggling alone, as was Mother once had, her applications pile growing daily with stories of resilience and hope from across all 50 states. Chen himself served as senior advisor, his business acumen tempered by newfound family connection, his corporate experience redirected toward creating sustainable funding models, ensuring the foundation would outlive them all, his eyes often following his niece with quiet pride as she navigated her dual heritage with increasing confidence, while honoring both biological parents and the grandmother who raised her through years of struggle. The bright, optimistic atmosphere created stark contrast with the opening chapters of their shared story. From the humble diner, where destiny arrived disguised as an ordinary customer, to this place of possibility, where lives transformed daily through opportunities created by wealth redistributed with purpose and compassion. Photographs adorned walls telling visual stories of first-generation college students, single mothers receiving medical degrees, fathers completing technical training while raising children alone, each image representing ripples of change flowing outward from the initial stone cast by one mysterious act of recognition across a diner counter. A young applicant touring the facility paused before the crescent moon logo embossed in silver and jade, asking Ava how she handled such enormous responsibility transitioning from serving coffee to serving communities, genuine curiosity rather than judgment prompting her thoughtful response. Ava touched her birthmark gently while considering, afternoon light catching the jade pendant at her throat, matching the crescent shape that had connected her past to her present, forever changing her future through revelation rather than concealment of truth. Every mark we bear tells a story waiting to be uncovered. Your struggles today are preparing you for the person you will become tomorrow, she replied with quiet certainty born from experience. Watching understanding dawn across the young mother's face like sunrise breaking through clouds, illuminating possibilities previously hidden by circumstances that seemed immovable until someone recognized worth beyond current limitations, the universal truth of hidden potential waiting within each life for recognition and opportunity to transform not just one existence, but generations following after.